And welcome to CX Confessions. My name is Christine Reimer, and I lead customer experience and customer advocacy at SurveyMonkey. And CX Confessions is our chance to have authentic, real, practical, helpful conversations with some of the best customer experience leaders in the industry. We really want this session to be interactive. So first, we would love to hear from you. Please add a note and comment where are you dialing in from. And any questions that you have throughout the session, if we don't answer it live, we'd love to follow up with you. So with that, I'd like to welcome my very good friend, Chase Zenger from Box. He leads customer experience at Box. And welcome, Chase.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Right, well, let's start. Since we're not sitting side by side and we're both in our homes, I always like to start conversations with where are you sheltering in place and who are you with?
Yeah, so joining you from Redwood City, California, lovely place out here. And I'm sheltering in place with my wife and 3 kids, one of which is just 4 months old. So it's been an interesting COVID experience, trying to manage not only 2 toddlers but also a relatively new child. So it's been an adventure, to say the least.
Absolutely. I've met Chase's older kids who, you know, as we all are in the situation of our kids walking in the middle of meetings. So, well, welcome. Thank you. I know how much you're juggling, so thanks for taking the time.
Happy to hear.
So let's back up. How did you get into the customer experience space, Chase?
Yeah, actually fairly early on in my career. I was at PwC doing consulting, and after a couple of years there, came across a particular group that focused on customer impact consulting and specifically customer experience design, and where we did market research to identify customer experience trends in specific industries, and that immediately caught my attention. I have a big passion for behavioral economics and understanding what influences people's decisions and behavior. And so for me, customer experience was the kind of perfect way to be able to take that passion and that interest and be able to use it at work. And yeah, so since then I've kind of had a variety of different roles, all focused or centered around customer experience. I was a customer success manager. I've done leading voice of the customer programs and initiatives, and have now kind of pivoted into focusing on more broader kind of holistic customer experiences, specifically in the B2B space at Box.
Awesome, awesome. And I have to confess for you, you guys dialed in. Chase, how have we known each other? Coming up at 3 years?
Or 3 years, coming up on 3 years.
Yeah. 3 years. So I will tell you, Chase is one of the folks when I'm wrestling through something, thinking through how to goal, thinking through how to measure, he is one of the people I turn to. So again, I'm very, very grateful that you're joining in. All right, so you have this background and you arrive at Box, and so many of the folks that listen in, maybe at the beginning of their journey, they might have some feedback programs that aren't very coordinated. So tell me about arriving at Box, and then how did you get started?
Yeah, so when I initially joined Box, we had a number of different surveys, a number of different survey tools. Each different team is trying to get necessary feedback for the teams to be able to make critical decisions around what to do next. But we recognized that we were asking customers a lot of the same questions. Data wasn't being shared. We were using different metrics and different insights, and there was not really a holistic strategy. So the first step that I took was kind of doing an assessment of everything that's out there and recognizing what's good and what needs to be fixed and changed. But then step 2 is really looking at what is our future state, and specifically what is the future state of our data, and what are the needs of the different teams, what information do they want from our customers, and then how do we push that data into the right systems so that they can access that data easily, manipulate that data, and be able to use that in conjunction with the other data sets that they have. So that's kind of where we kick things off.
Absolutely. What I love about that is so many organizations, if you have built a customer-centric culture, you are often asking those questions, but getting that coordinated, thinking holistically, tackling where there might be gaps, but maybe not at the beginning disrupting what's working, but you still need to think holistically.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was, one of the things that we struggled with a little bit is it's what do you optimize for, right? I mean, there was, do you optimize for the product team that needs essential product feedback? Do you try to optimize for sales and for marketing and pipeline? Do you optimize for customer adoption and retention and just pure, NPS metrics? And so we tried to be able to solve as best we could for all of those to some extent, recognizing that we may not have a perfect program in place initially, but we were trying to think, 5-10 years down the road, what would be this ideal architecture and this ideal solution? And that's kind of what we were marching towards and building towards, at least from the get-go. We still have a long way to go, but we definitely made some significant strides. And a lot of the decisions that we've made now will have set us up for success going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I observed Box being so strong at, and with your leadership, is really thinking about there's customer feedback, but how are you joining it to the data about the customer? One, so you're not asking them, what product do you own? If you have data about a customer, we have the same philosophy. You should not be asking the question. You should be joining it to the behavioral data, to the operational data, the financial data. And I know that really influenced your sort of feedback or customer experience program. So talk to me about how you thought about integrating feedback with your other data sources.
Yeah, there's really kind of two different ways to do that, right? Is you can pull your operational data into your kind of survey and customer experience data platform, or you can pull and import the customer experience data into your existing data warehouse. And that was the option that we decided to go with because we already had a lot of systems in place and processes and data validation and analyses that will run off of the existing operational data that we have. And so adding additional data points from customer experience and customer feedback data for us was the easier and ultimately has turned out to be the better move because it has given us so much flexibility in terms of what we can do with that information, what teams can use it, what systems can leverage it, Slack, Gainsight, Salesforce, and a variety of others. It has really been helpful for us to be able to have that already ingrained and embedded with the other data that we provide to our teams.
Yeah, no, totally makes sense. And so you pull, say, your customer feedback into your data warehouse. That lets you join data sources and do the analysis of around what matters most and taking action. Yeah. You also, remind me, I think you also join that feedback data into your CRM system, providing visibility, the ability to take action. Talk to me about how you think about feedback in your CRM system.
Yeah, I think to date, that has actually been the most impactful and more powerful part of our program is that, when that data is then pulled into our various customer success systems that we can now trigger action to be taken by the CSM or by others across the board to follow up with the customer. And that has proven to be incredibly effective, not only for, on an aggregate level in terms of just the overall experience that we're providing, but for that individual customer that we do respond to, we've seen some incredible stories and incredible turnarounds and just appreciation that we're actually listening to and reading and paying attention to the feedback that they provide. I think a lot of us just assume that our feedback goes into some black box and maybe is aggregated with thousands of other responses, which in some cases is fine. But when you can create that personalized touch and recognize that, hey, I'm being heard and my feedback actually matters, that is where we kind of doubled down and made a bet that in the long run, this is going to be a more effective use of our time and resources is when a customer does respond, there's an issue and we are going above and beyond to resolve that. That to us is more of a representation of the experience and the centricity that we want to provide versus purely a promoter score or a CSAT metric. While helpful and useful is is not, at least in my mind, the critical part of a voice of the customer program.
Yep, no, I totally agree. And SurveyMonkey is similar. We pull our feedback data into Salesforce, which is what our sales team uses, and our support team. We also pull it into Gainsight. I know you're also a Gainsight customer, and that's how our success team is able to do follow-ups. And you know, before we started this this live stream, we were just talking about response rates, and you know, this is the perpetual challenge. And over the 2 years where we've been doing those one-on-one follow-ups, you know, guess what? We've, you know, exponentially improved our response rate. Why? Because people know when they're sharing their opinion, they are heard because they're hearing back from us.
Yeah, and I think we've seen similar trends as well, just in the response rate for the population that we're more aggressively following up with, but also, you know, for our long tail customers, where we are using this as one of the primary levers to have and drive conversations, and being able to recognize and identify at-risk customers. This has been our probably most successful kind of campaign to drive customer conversations and meetings, and be able to talk about what else can we do to help their account. So for us, you know, that it's already started to pay dividends in that regard, and we're seeing more positive trends, because at least our hypothesis is that, you know, when I give feedback to Box, they listen, they do something about it, and we can have a conversation, and they're willing to go above and beyond to help.
Yeah, I remember you coined the expression, I believe, that you use feedback to have conversations in context. Yeah. So that you're not just, a CSM is not just reaching out without, but actually has a reason and can actually provide value to that customer.
Yeah. Yeah, and the nice thing is it creates a natural conversation and topic starter. It automatically gives you a pulse and a sense of kind of what their sentiment is, rather than you having to dig in and discover what it is on a call. And so, you know, for us, it's been a really nice way to get further along in a customer relationship in a very short period of time. And for us, especially in our scale population and our long tail population of customers, it's incredibly valuable to kind of be able to immediately have a really important set of information to then have a deeper conversation with the customer about, okay, what do you need from Box from a service and support perspective? What do you need from a product perspective? And you know, those surveys are incredibly valuable for us in terms of having those right conversations.
Yeah, no, I love that. And another angle, and you've already touched on this a bit, and Chase and I, well, I'll admit, we've had many a debate over the last 18 months on this next topic.
Yeah.
So many organizations, including SurveyMonkey, does have a goal, a net promoter goal, with the idea being, you know, the downside of that is it's so indirect, given all that feedback, what actually moves the needle. We all know, how do you balance what moves the needle? How do you motivate folks? Is the number particularly motivating? No. But you took a pivot and backed away from a number goal to a different goal. Yep. So tell me a bit about the thought process and what you switched to and how that's going.
Yeah, I think, you know, I wish I could take full credit for making the pivot, but I think it largely was driven by, you know, we didn't have enough responses, and we didn't have strong senior executive support for a single number to represent the sentiment of our customers. And so to be able to demonstrate value and a number that our team could go strive to improve, we then pivoted to say, like, okay, if NPS is not our ultimate metric, let's focus then on closing the loop rate, or what percentage of customers are we following up with when they do complete a survey. And so for us, that has been something that we've been trying to strive for near perfection on. And when we do see detractors, especially, we are making sure that we follow up in a very timely way. And my hypothesis is, and I think we can start to see some of that data already, is that this will then ultimately drive the NPS number. And with NPS being more of a lagging kind of indicator of customer sentiment and customer experience. But, you know, I would much rather, you know, for every customer that responds, we follow up, then we go try to take this Herculean effort to go change one component of our customer experience that may not really be the key driver of whether or not a customer decides to stay with Box. So for us, it's that's our current trajectory and current path is to continue to drive and close the loop. And NPS, we know, will kind of follow. Yeah. And there's so many other factors that go into NPS, it's just really hard for any team to really go drive and make an improvement on it in any meaningful way in a short period of time. The closing loop is something we can go action on immediately. And so that's where we focus, at least for now. That may change, but I think that's our approach at this point.
I love it, and Chase knows we've had many a conversation on, what are the pros, because it really drives that cross-functional ownership and that follow-up as part of the experience. And then sometimes you find those nuggets, you find those stories, you have those conversations in context that are so powerful. So you touched on this. So what we know, most CX, customer experience teams, are very lean. They're very small, often purposely, with the hypothesis that it is your job to connect the sales and success, the support, the product, the marketing organizations, the IT organization. It's your job to work with and through your cross-functional partners. Mm-hmm. So tell me a bit about just advice to those watching and myself. How do you approach cross-functional partnerships? How have you used things like, I know you've been really thoughtful on how you flow your feedback to empower and to get feedback directly to frontline folks. So I would love to hear some of your advice there.
Yeah. I think initially, like any cross-functional effort where you're trying to get other teams to prioritize your projects and your work, you have to be very clear with what's in it for them, and then kind of followed by what's in it for the business, and then third, what's in it for you. And I think having just pretty open conversations about that, saying, look, I know that you've got 20 other things on your bucket of things to do, but let me kind of articulate why I think this needs to be prioritized and moved up. And at the same time, it's also being able to articulate, hey, look, this is how it's going to help the business, how it's going to help my team, what it's going to do for us broadly. But I think to your point, when you've got a lean team that's focused on customer experience, starting small is I think the key thing that we try to do is try to not chew off everything at the same time or boil the ocean, but focus on some very concrete, specific projects initially that you can then go kind of create a snowball effect where you start small, you get a good win under your belts, you kind of demonstrate to the other teams here's how it's impacted the business, and then you can start to work from there. And we're still very much in the infancy of our program and have a long way to go. But I think we've got enough momentum now where if we were to go make additional asks of our other teams, they will certainly listen and will certainly kind of help think through what does the prioritization look like. But my recommendation would just be to start small and get some quick wins early.
Yeah, and that builds nicely. I mean, so many folks we talk to is how do you balance that the need to be an agile phased program, right? How are you putting points on the board early? But then at the same time, you're asked as a CX leader to have a vision and a journey map, and journey map can be agile, but it can also be this sort of lofty goal and have relationships high and low. And so anything you would do different, anything you sort of look back and go, oh, I would have balanced this differently, because I know we all struggle just between that balance.
Yeah, I think journey mapping has become such a buzzword and a variety of different definitions around what journey map is and what it should be and what it could be. And I think like a lot of people have experienced, when we try to go do a journey map, we try to do, from beginning to end, all customers, and just kind of do this massive Herculean effort. And it was helpful, it was beneficial, but it has now just been sitting on the shelf and not really, it's really hard to go make improvements across the board like that. So we very quickly pivoted and focused on, let's go journey map very specific known pain points across the business that we can go fix and use some customer feedback and data on. Can we, just focus on very narrow, specific touch points in the customer journey that we can work on as a team. And that has proven to be helpful. There will always be people that want to have an end-to-end journey. And I think, there are times and places to do that. But if you're starting from scratch, or if you want to be able to demonstrate what you're doing, my feedback has been, look, I can give you a big, broad, massive journey if you want, but I think you can find more value in let's focus on areas of the journey that we know need to be worked on, and let's go kind of orchestrate and get a little more detailed into those touch points. But I think everyone has different experiences with journey mapping. We've certainly had multiple iterations, even during the 3 years that I've been here, just around, do we want to go tackle it? What part of the journey do we go for certain segments? And it looks different every quarter, it seems like.
Yeah, no, I totally, it resonates. I'm constantly, flying at the high altitude and then down just drafting notes around, what are we doing this quarter and how can feedback help that? And one of the things I notice, or I think I have evolved as a customer experience leader, I think when I started in this role many years ago, I don't know how to describe it. I don't say it was this very pure, like, here's the feedback, do something about it. Here's the feedback, do something about it. And I wasn't necessarily putting the feedback in context of the business priorities. I wasn't always partnering first with, say, my product organization and ask, where are the areas you're investing in and how can feedback help support that? The conversations I'm having with my cross-functional team are very different now because we're triangulating feedback from, you got this project feedback, and what are we hearing from support, and where are you already investing? And that's how we're driving action. Yep. So I would love your perspective of, because I think this is one of the areas when customer experience leaders talk about not having a strategic seat at the table or not always being heard. I feel like sometimes they're missing the importance of being in context of the business.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we've certainly come a long way in terms of being able to capture the feedback and look at that, especially the product feedback, in context of the business and of the customers that are providing the feedback. I think over the past few years, we now have a quarterly, what we call product interlock meeting, where we try to bring feedback from across the business, from sales, from marketing, from customer success, and then also from the customer, all of those together to then say, like, okay, let's take a look at the roadmap. What are the top feature requests? What things do we need to reprioritize? And it's certainly not perfect, and it certainly needs to improve in many ways. And I think there's recognition across the organization for that. But we're getting better at being able to look at the feedback we're getting in context and trying to have an open dialogue and discussion to say, here's what we're seeing from the marketing side, here's what customers are saying, here's kind of the current product roadmap. Let's kind of triangulate what makes the most sense. It's certainly a challenge. Like, if anyone solves for that perfectly, let me know. I'd love to hear that and understand how that works. But I think we are trying to combine the customer feedback with their customer objectives, their use cases, how much they spend, and then all of that to then kind of prioritize and make decisions on product feedback.
Yeah. I was, as you asked if anyone else out there, I was going to say, yeah. I'm literally working with my customer insight leads, Inga, on how we frame up a customer insights quarterly conversation. And, if you're too distant from the core problems of the core roadmap, it's going to be one of those meetings folks don't attend regularly. And so I'll be curious. I'm going to find out how you run that meeting, because I'm in the same mode of how to have that conversation. Yeah. Well, with that, I'm looking and seeing that we are coming up on time. For all of these, the questions that we didn't get to, please add in comments. Chase and I can hop in. I'll pull in Chase's advice. But with that, I just wanted to thank you, Chase, for taking time. 3 young kids combined with a really busy job and in your house. Thank you for taking the time to join and share your insights with the broader folks.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. This is great.
Absolutely. All right. With that, everyone, thank you so much for joining. Stay tuned on the CX Confessions page on who's coming up. I think our next one, oh gosh, we've got such a good lineup. Cynthia Hester, who Chase also knows from Google Cloud, is amazing. She's going to be joining us, as is Lupe Gonzalez from Headspace, who I recently met and adore. So they have a ton of insights to share. So stay tuned. Other than that, have a great day. Stay healthy.
Thank you.